Monkey D. Luffy is the main protagonist of the One Piece anime and manga series. Born in Fuchsia Village, Luffy became obsessed with the dream of becoming the king of the pirates and finding the legendary treasure of the One Piece after meeting red-haired Shanks, who later become Luffy's inspiration. At the age of 17, Luffy set sail to start his voyage towards his dreams of becoming the Pirate King. During his travels, Luffy founded the crew of the Straw Hat Pirates and became their captain and strongest member. Through their success as a promising rookie crew and after defeating several big names around the Grand Line, the crew garnered infamy and saw exponential growth in their bounties. After defeating one of the Emperors of the Sea, Kaido, who held the title of the world's strongest creature, Luffy became recognized as an Emperor of the Sea himself, and one of the 4 pirates considered to be the closest to finding the legendary treasure of the One Piece and being crowned the next king of the pirates. In this video, I'll be explaining all of the abilities of the Straw Hat Captain. This video will be going over all of Luffy's abilities in depth, covering his Devil Fruit and his Haki. This will also be covering all of Luffy's gears from Gear 2nd to Gear 5th, and also covering Luffy's proficiency for Haki. This being Armament Haki, Observation Haki, and Conqueror's Haki. At the time I'm making this video, the One Piece manga is currently on the Egghead Island arc, so things are liable to change in the future, just keeping that in mind. Although the information in this video will still be accurate nonetheless. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's cover Luffy's abilities. Luffy's abilities and powers come from 2 main sources, being his Devil Fruit and his Haki. Firstly, I'll be covering Luffy's Devil Fruit abilities, and then later on in the video, after I've covered his Devil Fruit, I'll talk about his Haki abilities. Luffy has the Human Fruit, Model Nika, which is a mythical Zoan type fruit that transforms him into the Sun God Nika. As a result of this, it also turns his body into rubber, which gives him the ability to stretch himself to insane distances. Being made of rubber, Luffy has a high immunity to both blunt attacks and falling. He is also completely immune to electricity. Luffy has shown an insane level of creativity and control over his rubber powers, with his arsenal being wide-ranging, with abilities such as the Gum Gum Pistol, Gum Gum Bazooka, and the Gum Gum Gatling. Luffy has also managed to develop power-ups with these rubber powers, known as Luffy's Gears. These gears consist of Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd, Gear 4th, Gear 4th Snake Man, and finally Gear 5th. With all that being said, Luffy and his Devil Fruit do have some weaknesses, them being the fact that Luffy is weak to Sea Prism Stone and absolutely all types of water. Luffy also doesn't have any immunity to sharp, cutting or stabbing attacks. Also, absolutely any attacks, even blunt ones, if they are infused with Armament Haki, will damage Luffy. Luffy's gears are arguably one of the most important parts of Luffy's arsenal, which is why I'll be explaining what they are and how they work. Luffy's first gear, being Gear 2nd, was introduced in his fight against Blue Nose with CP9. Gear 2nd allows Luffy to use a part of his body as a sort of pump, which increases the speed of Luffy's blood flow. This gives his skin a reddish tint and causes him to steam a lot. In Gear 2nd, Luffy becomes a lot faster and stronger than he is in his base form, and he also gains access to an ability called Soru. Soru is an ability used by the Cypher Pole agents and is a technique of the Roku Shiki, which allows the user to travel short distances faster than the eye can see. This is done by the user kicking the ground up to 10 times in a single instant. Luffy's attacks in Gear 2nd are identical to the ones in his base form, with the only difference being their speed and power drastically increase. Even more so when Luffy uses them alongside his Armament Haki after the time skip. Now also after the time skip, we saw Luffy use a new move created by the use of Gear 2nd and his Armament Haki called Gum Gum Red Hawk, where Luffy is able to light his fists on fire in a similar style of attack to that of the Gum Gum Bullet. The next gear that was seen in the story was Gear 3rd, which Luffy first used in his fight against Rob Lucci. Gear 3rd works by Luffy biting down into the top of his thumb and creating a small hole in his bones, which Luffy will then blow a large bucket of air into, which inflates his arm like a balloon. The air inside of Luffy's bones can be transferred to any part of his body, which causes whatever limb the air is into to increase significantly in size to that of a giant's. With the added size of Luffy's limbs, Luffy's attacks in Gear 3rd do a significant amount of damage, much greater than both his base and Gear 2nd. This is amplified even further when he uses them alongside his Armament Haki. These attacks, much like Gear 2nd, stay pretty much the same as in his base form, however Luffy's overall attack speed in Gear 3rd is a noticeable bit slower than his base as the trade-off for the size and power gained. During Dressrosa, we saw the introduction of Gear 4th against Doflamingo. To activate Gear 4th, Luffy coats his forearm in Armament Haki and then bites down into his forearm and blows air into his muscles instead of his bones as he would do in Gear 3rd. What this does is it inflates Luffy's upper body, and both Luffy's arms and legs as well as a portion of his torso are coated in Armament Haki. From the inflation of Luffy's upper body, he bounces a lot, hence the name of the gear being Gear 4th Bowman. Gear 4th provides a high increase in both strength, speed, and durability, with his speed being greater than Gear 2nd's and strength above that of Gear 3rd's. Luffy also maintains his rubber-like consistency, even with the parts of him that are supposed to be hardened with armament haki. Luffy's attacks differ in Gear 4th, with his attacks being made with the compression of his limbs and the quick build-up of tension rather than his ability to stretch. Instead of Luffy stretching his arm back and quickly flinging it forward, Luffy will compress his hand and arm into itself, then get within a decently close range before releasing the compression and striking his opponent. Luffy can also fly by using the same compression. Gear 4th does have drawbacks that have lessened over time but are still present. Gear 4th takes a big hit to Luffy's stamina, and when he first used it he was utterly exhausted to the point he could barely move. Also, from the overuse of his haki, after Gear 4th, Luffy cannot use any haki for a short period of time, being 10 minutes when it was first introduced. Luffy in the recent arcs has been shown to have these drawbacks lessened and suffers nowhere near the same amount of fatigue. Later in the story, we saw Luffy utilize another application of Gear 4th called Gear 4th Snake Man. This form was used against Charlotte Katakuri as a counter to his advanced observation haki, which allowed Katakuri to see a short period into the future. Luffy in Snake Man form isn't as bloated as in Gear 4th Bowman, and Luffy is significantly more proportionate size-wise, while still having the same armament coat as in ordinary Gear 4th. The attacks of Gear 4th Snake Man work under the same idea of compression as normal Gear 4th, however it trades power and durability for a massive increase in speed. The increase in speed is so vast that Luffy was able to hit Katakuri, even though Katakuri could see a handful of seconds into the future during their fight. Snake Man suffers the same drawbacks as the Bowman form, however, with Luffy being depleted of his haki and taking a last blow to his stamina after use. Luffy's final gear, being Gear 5th, is his latest and his newest gear. Gear 5th is the awakening of Luffy's devil fruit that was awakened after he was defeated by Kaido on Onigashima. Activating Gear 5th requires Luffy's heart to a specific rhythm known as the Drums of Liberation. Once activated, Luffy takes on a near fully white appearance with his hair and clothes both turning white. He also has clouds floating around him, similar to that of Gear 4th. In Gear 5th, Luffy's strength, speed and durability increase even further, far surpassing all of his previous gears. Luffy also has total control over his rubber body, moulding his body into whatever shape he can think of to a stupidly cartoonish extent, and has the ability to turn the environment, other people and intangible matter like lightning into rubber and change their shape. This ability is said to be only limited by Luffy's imagination, with him also being able to subconsciously affect the environment in an almost Looney Tunes style. Luffy can also fly without the need for compressive tension like Gear 4th. Currently, Luffy does have a time limit on Gear 5th and can only use it for a short while before becoming burnt out. Now with Luffy's devil fruit covered, I'm going to move on to Luffy's haki abilities. Haki is an ability that everybody in the One Piece world has the ability to learn, but most people don't actually know what haki is, let alone the training they need to go through to actually utilize it. Now haki is basically what I'm going to refer to as a fighting style that allows a user to utilize their spiritual energy and willpower and manifest it physically and mentally. Think of it as your kind of generic shonen power system like Chakra from Naruto, Ryotsu from Bleach, or Ki from Dragon Ball. We first learned about the types of haki through Silver's Rayleigh in episode 516 in the anime and chapter 597 in the manga when he was training Luffy to use it on Route Skyner. Haki can be divided into three categories, with those being armament or Buso Shoku haki, observation or Kenbu Shoku haki, and conquerors or Haoshoku haki. Buso Shoku or armament haki is a very commonly used type of haki in the One Piece world. What armament haki does is it manifests the user's spiritual energy to create an invisible armor, usually depicted as a black color in the series, that can be used both offensively and defensively. This drastically increases attack power and destructivity and can be used as a safeguard to reduce damage taken from attacks. One of the main perks of armament haki is that it can nullify the effects of devil fruit abilities of those who are usually immune to certain types of physical attacks. This means a user of armament haki can strike and harden those with low gear abilities who are otherwise intangible due to the nature of their fruit. Armament can also be imbued onto any objects that the user touches, which drastically boosts the objects in a similar way as it would their own body. When two users of armament haki clash together, whoever has the higher concentration of armament will overwhelm and break through the other's defense. Armament is also not an infinite source, as overuse of haki will tire out the user, and if enough is used in a short period, the user won't be able to use any form of haki at all for a short period before it replenishes. Through hard training, a skilled user of armament haki can unlock the advanced version, which is the emission of their haki. This type of Haki allows the user to push their armament outside their own body. This gives the user a sort of aura around them and allows them to do damage to their target without needing to make physical contact, although they do need to be in a close proximity. A step above emission, and the most destructive form of armament, is internal destruction. This allows the user to emit and flow their Haki into their target to destroy them from the inside out, causing catastrophic damage. To flow their Haki into their target, a user of advanced armament only needs to make a light form of contact or no contact at all from a close range to start emitting their Haki. The next common type of Haki that is used by many is Kenbushoku or Observation Haki. Observation Haki grants the user a sixth sense which allows them to sense presence, strength, intentions, and emotions with limited precognitive abilities. Observation, unlike armament and conquerors, has almost no visual indication of it being used, with the only thing to take note of being that the user has a bright red glow to their eyes when they use it, although this is only the case after the Whole Cake Island arc. Presence sensing allows the user of observation to sense the auras and energy of people who are nearby. They can see the auras of people through walls and objects that they wouldn't be able to see through naturally. Depending on how skilled the user is, the range of this ability can vary from a few feet away to the scope of an entire island if they train the observation hard enough. Strength sensing is pretty self-explanatory. This allows the user to measure the strength and Haki of people that they sense. Through this, they can easily locate and detect people with powerful auras and can even detect the strength of weapons. Emotion sensing allows a user of observation Haki to sense the emotions and true nature of others. Through this, a user can tell if somebody is lying if their words don't match the emotions that they are feeling. This ability is not flawless, however, as somebody with good acting skills and control over their emotions can deceive somebody who uses this ability. Intent sensing allows the user to sense a person's intent to act in the immediate future, allowing them to predict somebody's next move and act accordingly to it. The easiest form of intent to sense is bloodlust and killing intent, and the more experience a person has at using this type of Haki, the easier it is for them to predict and dodge any attacks that the opponent may do. A highly trained and skilled user of Observation Haki can unlock the advanced version, which is the ability of Future Sight. This, as the ability implies, allows a user of advanced observation to see a short period into the future. Unlike normal observation, it doesn't work off an enhanced intuition, and the user sees precise mental images of what will happen within the next few seconds. Future Sight can act as a direct counter to Armament Haki if the user is a low gear fruit user. They can do this by foreseeing where the armament attacks will land and changing their shape accordingly. Now, with that being said, the future somebody sees can be changed by any action that they decide to make to change it, although the consequences that they take to change the future may not be something that they immediately foresee the consequences of. Future Sight allows the user to see, from what we know, up to about 10 seconds into the future in a single instant if they are advanced enough with the technique. Some weaknesses when it comes to observation Haki is that a user needs to be in a calm state of mind to use observation to its fullest potential. The more a user of observation is mentally agitated in any way, the less effective it becomes, and with Future Sight, the time foreseen will decrease. Also, as being displayed, the observation Haki can be nullified and completely killed through the use of high level Conqueror's Haki. Observation, along with Future Sight, is also not a guaranteed dodge to all attacks. If somebody sees an attack coming, then they still need to have the capabilities to dodge the attack, otherwise they will still be hit. Like armament, observation can also be depleted if overused. The last type, and by far the rarest type of Haki, is Haoshoku or Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki is possessed in only 1 in a million people and cannot be awoken through training for those who are not born with the ability. Those who are born with Conqueror's Haki are said to be those who have the qualities of a king and a leader. Often, those who possess it are considered highly valuable assets and also significant threats. Conqueror's Haki allows the user to exert their willpower onto other people and intimidate, dominate, and subjugate their opponent's psyche. Most often, this is through a shockwave that expands from the user that emanates from their eyes, with those who are in the range being affected. When it comes to the effectiveness of Conqueror's Haki, the more drive and willpower a person possesses in comparison to the user, the less they become affected by the technique, with some people not being affected at all. The intimidation factor of Conquerors allows the user to strike fear into anyone or any animal they use the technique on. This usually leads to the domestication of animals and sometimes the complete subjugation of them just on a glance. This can also result in the inability to move for some people, a lessened will to fight, and sometimes also subjugation, rendering those who are in the range effectively unconscious. The amount of people that the user has an effect on is dependent on the user's overall strength and willpower, with characters like Luffy being capable of completely incapacitating over 50,000 fishmen during the Fishman Island arc. If a user of Conqueror's Haki is trained to a high enough degree, they can become capable of funneling their Haki towards specific individuals rather than anyone in a certain area. On the other hand, those who lack experience with the Haki and either don't realize they have it or release it subconsciously, will not have any control over the people that they affect. When high amounts of Conqueror's Haki are used, the resultant effect can be seen in damage to the environment through a high-powered shockwave. This effect can be amplified if 2 users of Conqueror's Haki clash together. The effect made by two Conqueror's Haki users clashing can be seen through the generation of what's called black lightning that usually stretches up to the sky, and when both Haki users are especially powerful, the result is a splitting of the clouds in the sky, referred to as splitting the heavens. The same as armament and observation, Conqueror's Haki also has itself an advanced application. Advanced Conqueror's is known as Infusion, which is very similar to the emission technique of armament Haki. Infusion allows the user of Conquerors to coat their body and weapons with their Haki that provides an absurdly high physical boost of strength and durability that exceeds armament. The use of Advanced Conquerors can be indicated by black lightning emanating from the user, and in the anime it's made even more clear with the user's body taking on a yellow aura. So far, only a handful of characters have been revealed to have this ability in the story. Luffy has access to all three types of Haki in the series, as well as their advanced versions mastered. Luffy is an extremely skilled user of all three types of Haki. With Conquerors, he's skilled enough to completely knock out 50,000 fishmen in the Fishman Island arc shortly after coming back from the time skip. He can also choose who he affects with Conquerors and in what way. With Infusion of Conquerors, Luffy became strong enough to clash against Kaido evenly, who before Infusion stated that his attacks were too shallow and barely caused Kaido any harm. Luffy's armament Haki is extremely strong, and with Gear 4th, his Haki becomes strong enough to damage much stronger opponents that he could have before, such as Doflamingo and Katakuri. With Emission and Internal Destruction, Luffy has enough durability to withstand attacks from Kaido, which he previously could not, and also attack enemies without the need for physical contact. He can also use Emission alongside Infusion to massively increase his attack power. Luffy's observation allows him to almost flawlessly sense presence, strength, intentions, and emotions. He can also see into the future, and it's not stated how far Luffy can see into the future, but of my own estimates, I'm going to say Luffy can see between 3 to 5 seconds. So, that's all there is to cover around Luffy's Devil Fruit, his abilities, his Haki, and his gears. This video will be a video that I use as reference for future videos, which I will call back this video to through a link in the description. The next video that I plan on releasing is a Naruto explained video, which will be in a similar style to this, which will be going over Naruto's abilities and his powers in depth, in the same sort of style that I've done this video in. And then after that, what I'll be doing is I'll be releasing a Luffy versus Naruto video, which will go over their feats and their power scaling rather than their abilities. This video, the video of Luffy's abilities and Naruto's abilities, will both be linked in the description of the Luffy vs Naruto video, which will also have the feats in it. So that's something to look forward to and something that should be releasing fairly soon. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.